Hi, welcome to WFP Reviews, looking at classic British series and movies that are still great today. This time, why to watch the epic series The World at War, and why it remains the best documentary program on the Second World War. You'll find this useful as World at War spans 26 hour-long episodes, so we'll focus on four main reasons why it's worth your time and is still very relevant today, though we'll touch on some shortcomings too. Also, note that some episodes are often free on YouTube, so you can give them a try after this short review. As we get started, I'll also ask you to take a second and click on that subscribe button to keep this content coming. The World at War was a Thames TV production in cooperation with the Imperial War Museum and was first released in 1973. However, production was started by show creator Jeremy Isaacs back in 1969, and that timing was critical to its greatness. Starting production 24 years after the war and working with a generous budget, Isaac's team had the luxury of interviewing many participants of every stripe who had lived through and participated in the war. We hear from leaders and generals, but also from civilians and common soldiers. This created an incredible insider's view of events, which later series can never duplicate. So, the historical record created by these first-person accounts is the top reason World at War is extraordinary. And while newer series focus on greatest hits collections of famous battles, World at War is broader, showing both the campaigns and the impact on everyday people. However, the long parade of high-profile interviewees is impressive. The list we hear from includes Nazi Minister Albert Speer, Eisenhower's driver, the pilot who dropped the first atomic bomb, Anthony Eden, Lord Mountbatten, and Hitler's secretary. Her account of the Führer's excuse rant as the Russians move in is engrossing and revealing.
And I was heart-bumping when I wrote down what Hitler said. But he used nothing new. He came out with his old phrases. He repeated his accusations, his revenge swearing to the enemy and to the Jewish capitalistic system.
The show's next great asset is the teaming of Sir Laurence Olivier's splendid narration and the elegant writing he had to work with. The series had 14 lead writers for different episodes, and their scripts are memorable. They're poetic, droll, tragically bleak, and always dramatic.
They never rebuilt Oradour. Its ruins are a memorial. Its martyrdom stands for thousand upon thousand of other martyrdoms in Poland, in Russia, in Burma, in China, in a world at war.
Next, while there are gaps, World at War is the most complete record of the conflict ever filmed. Episodes look at the war's origins, the rise of fascism, and everyday life in Germany, Japan, America, and Britain. We see the war in the desert, at sea, in the air, and on land around the globe. Arguably, some of the most memorable episodes focus on the war in Russia due to the vast operatic scale of the Eastern Front. Now, as mentioned, given its boundless subject matter and when it was filmed, there are some gaps. First, being a British production, it does give ample time to Britain's role in the war, but it fails to give proper time to the contribution of its colonies and the Commonwealth. Next, the history glosses over some of Russia's darker chapters in the war. There's little or no mention of the execution of Polish officers or the fate of German civilians as chronicled by writers like Max Hastings. Other critics feel that though the Pacific Theater and Fighting China are covered, the subjects deserved more time. Finally, some key intelligence facts, such as the decoding of the Enigma machines, were still largely secret in the 1970s and are naturally missing from the series. Now, while these points are fair, they hardly diminish the magnitude of what the World at War did achieve. The series gets a remarkable 9.2 ranking from viewers on IMDb, and with good reason. You won't find a broader or more thoughtful filmed record of this apocalypse, which killed between 70 and 85 million people. And that brings me to my final point on World at War, its timeless lesson on the grim cost of aggression. It's significant that the final episode is rather muted and is simply but importantly titled, Remember. Sadly, our modern world is looking more like it did in 1939 than it did in 1945 when peace broke out. Democracy is in retreat, while strongmen aggressively advance their power. We've seen it before, and as World at War reminds us, if we don't learn from history, we are fated to repeat it. I should also mention the strong musical score of the series and how well it works, especially its famous theme by Carl Davis. Remember, you can find World at War on YouTube or other streaming services or DVD. As usual, thanks for watching. Do remember to subscribe and come back again soon to Waltz Flicks Picks.